Exploring Metafiction, the language and features of metafiction and the practice of metafictive devices. The word meta means beyond or transcending, so metafiction means above or beyond fiction. It can also be referred to as fiction about fiction. Metafiction is not a new phenomenon by any means. It can be traced as far back as the 14th century with Homer's The Odyssey and Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Other historical examples include Don Quixote, Hamlet, and the history of Tom Jones. These are some of the characteristics of metafiction. Blurred lines between fiction and reality. The story examines the elements of fiction itself. Involvement of the author. Intrusions in the narrative. And rejections of a conventional plot. I chose the book Would You Like to Play Hide and Seek in This Book with Lovable Furry Old Grover? It's written by John Stone and illustrated by Michael Smolin. I chose this book because it's one of my childhood favorites and it's a great example of metafiction. In the story, Grover invites the reader to play hide and seek with him. Grover soon discovers that the confines of the pages make it difficult to hide. He tries to disappear in the corners of the book, paints the pages blue, and uses big word bubbles to hide behind. In the end, Grover pleads with the reader to tell him he is hidden. This book contains many metafictional elements. Let's take a look at a few of them. The author uses Grover to speak to the reader by asking them to engage in a game with him. The book is filled with questions that engage the reader, such as, "Can you see me now?" and "Please say yes." The illustrations are made to look like Grover is tearing and taping the pages to hide behind. This makes it seem as though Grover is climbing out of the book. The color and size of the font changes as well. Grover is engaging the reader as a friend that he wants to play hide and seek with. Page after page, he is determined to hide from you and repeatedly comments on how badly he wants to be hidden. This is a non-traditional story about playing a game with Grover. The story leaps off the page and invites the reader to be a part of it. Is there a link between metafiction and postmodern literature? First, let's look at some of the characteristics of postmodern literature. Irony, playfulness, and black humor, pastiche, intertextuality, temporal distortion, faction, magical realism, and participation. Postmodern literature can include many ironic and humorous elements. Authors may use pastiche to create a new narrative voice that combines previous genres such as science fiction or fictional history. Faction may also be used to blur the lines between fact and fiction. Non-linear timelines are also common. The use of participation bridges the gap between the reader and the author and involves the reader in the storyline. Magical realism may be used to introduce impossible elements into the story. This may include dreams, complicated plots, and fairy tales coming to life. Metafiction is a common literary device used by postmodern authors. However, the two are not one and the same. Although there can be a great deal of crossover, some books are either or, not both. The book Gorilla by Anthony Browne is an example of postmodern literature. However, it does not follow metafictional characteristics. There is a conventional plot, the narrator does not speak directly to the reader, and the layout is very traditional. On the other hand, the Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio was written in 1353 and is a story about storytelling. Although this predates the postmodern era, Boccaccio included various metafictional elements in this book, such as making himself a character in the story. As you can see, a postmodern book can be written without traces of metafiction, and metafiction can be found in books that predate the postmodern era. They go hand in hand nicely, but they can also stand alone. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching.
created using Powtoon.